Hello everybody, and we are live. It is Wednesday, it is The View from the Top, and we have another amazing show for you today. I'm so excited. We are going to be talking about vendor management, best practices and practical solutions. And this is something that I think everybody knows is so important, that building those partnership relationships between the corporate, all the dozens, many cases, many more than dozens, supply chain partners, and of course the ultimate employees, the assignees, the travelers, is critically important to a good practice. And we're going to be talking about how we can do that in practice, and in particular sharing with you the Benivo supplier partner network. It's really exciting stuff for anybody involved in mobility. Maybe not the most dramatic subject, but it's one that is just crucially important to mission success. Anyway, if you're out there, please write in the conversations, tell us who you are, where you are. Let's get those comments coming in so we can see who is out there in LinkedIn world who's going to be watching our show today. So let's find out who is out there in the world. By the way, if you do want to get your credits, I know a lot of you do want your credits. Then we got credits, we got CPE credits from GMS, from Worldwide ERC. We got your GMS credits, your Worldwide ERC credits. We've also got HRCI credits, and we've got SHRM credits. We're looking forward to seeing all those comments that are out there, seeing and enjoying your comments. I see Chris Barnett wishing me a happy month of April. Indeed, Chris, and for that, hopefully many of you saw the April Fool that we put out there on the 1st of April. Hopefully that gave you a little smile on Monday morning. Anyway, next week we've got another fascinating show for you. Next week we're going to be talking about mobility management in a world in perma-crisis, and we're talking about all these things that are going on in the world, whether it's a geopolitical issue like I don't know, a war or a crisis, or whether it's a natural disaster, or whether it's just a tragic accident. How do you handle these things? How do you handle mobility management in a crisis situation? And I'm super honored that we've got International SOS on the show with us next week, and they're going to be talking about some of the really important stuff, and in many cases heartbreaking stuff that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis, week in, week out throughout the world. And people are coming in from all over the world now. I see we've got Christopher Barnett here, we've got Monica Kane who's come in. People are coming in from all over. In fact, I can see we've got about 160 people watching us live. So let's move on and let's have a look at some of the breaking news. What's been going on in the wonderful world of global mobility over the last 7 days? Let's have a look. So there you go, lots of exciting news in the last week. Many congratulations to everyone who's been promoted, everyone who's got a new job. And I'd like to give a very special personal shout out to Michelle Durkin, previously worked with me, of course, at Benivo and on the View from the Top, was my co-host in the early days of the View from the Top, and is now starting out her own consultancy, MLD Consulting. So big thank you to Michelle Durkin for all the effort she put into building the View from the Top in our early days, and we wish you every success in your new role. Let's now move on to talk about immigration. As ever, I'm super delighted that we have Julia Onslow-Cole, who's going to be talking to us today about US immigration and some of the issues that are very, very topical at the moment. So let's bring onto stage the wonderful Julia Onslow-Cole.
Hi, Brian.
Yeah, hi, how are you?
Very well, thanks. Yes, very well. I did fall for your April Fool, I have to say.
You should never admit that. Oh, it was fun, I must admit. And I have to tell you, we got nearly 7,000 views of that particular April Fool. So who knows, one day maybe we really will have implantable devices, but hopefully not. Julia, I know you're going to be talking about US immigration for the next couple of weeks. So
yeah,
take us on the tour. US immigration, let's go for it.
Lovely. So I was thinking that we haven't really covered the US for a while. So I'm doing a sort of two-part thing. So this week I'm just talking about some really important updates. And next week I'm going to talk about the presidential elections, what it might mean for immigration. So this week I wanted to start with an update on the H-1B lottery. And as you know, everyone just struggles through the process because, you know, it's very difficult because everybody needs far more H-1Bs than they can have because it was established at a time of very different economic circumstances. And last year, the lottery was really catastrophic. And that's because the government system that was running it spawned a kind of defect where people could make artificially multiple registrations. So there were bad actors that came into play last year, and they went to people and said, why don't we apply for, why don't we register you as well? And so there were beneficiaries who were registered with 2 or 3 different organizations. So the government used its enforcement powers to really throw back at that and to make sure that that didn't happen. And also what they've done is made sure that the lottery system itself is run off beneficiary and not individual registrations. So the government did a really good job at really attacking all of this bad behavior that caused all these problems with the lottery last year. And what we're seeing is an acceptance rate that's a little higher than last year, but not quite as high as people hoped. I don't have the exact figures in front of me, but I think last year, I think there was approximately a 14% acceptance rate. And the year before it was 33%. So I think this year it's more than 14, but not quite as good as 33%. But that's the current position on H-1Bs. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that government will be issuing some new regulations, and they're going to be really important, and they're likely to be passed this year. Some of them are real improvements, like the government's going to try and tackle the cap gap. So like, for example, if a student visa runs out, then you're going on to H-1B, there's a gap. And this, the new process will help bridge that gap more effectively. And then there's also some really poor consequences of these new regulations. And one of them that I've pulled out is really the definition of specialty occupation and degree requirement. At the moment, we feel that the government too tightly prescribes what sort of degree you need if you have a certain occupation. And really, we don't think it takes account of modern day connections between degrees and occupations. And Fragment's new Center for Strategy and Applied Insights in Washington, which is led by Bo Cooper, who I would say very kindly spoke to me until the early hours of this morning to give me some of these updates. They've
thank you from behalf of everybody on the View from the Top.
yeah,
You were
thank you,
saying to get the information. That's really appreciated.
Bo's this has written on behalf of the centre to the government on a number of these issues. And the last thing that Bo said was really interesting, but many people might miss this. He said, in October of last year, the president issued an executive order on AI. And it was meant to really say, look at AI's threats and opportunities. And it really wasn't meant to be an immigration. There's absolutely pages of it, apparently. And it talks all about the security threats of AI. But deep into that document, there is some information which says that the government really want as many AI experts in the US as possible. And they directed the immigration agencies to make it easier to attract people who are AI experts. And in particular, the president directed the Department of Labour to add these AI experts to the shortage occupation list, which is Schedule A. Now, this is super interesting because Schedule A has not been updated for years. And it's really quite underscores, I think, the war for talent for people with AI skills. And obviously the president and the US recognize what shortage these skills are for people with AI. So next,
so it's interesting in a way, isn't it? That everybody's been worried that AI could lead to loss of jobs, whereas actually what we're seeing is that
war for talent.
There's a war for talent in AI jobs.
Yeah, quite. Yeah. So next week I'm going to cover what will happen in the election from an immigration perspective and steps that maybe you could take now to strategize that.
That's really interesting. So what you're saying, I know we were talking about this early off screen, is that there are steps that you could take now to prepare in the event to cover, I suppose, both outcomes, one candidate or the other.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Biden continues, then things will be on the same trajectory. But if President Trump was elected, or if President Trump became the leader, then I think you could look back over what happened last time and then maybe predict what might happen in the future and what might be sensible to consider at this stage.
Okay, well, that's going to be a super important update. So we've got a great show next week, but do everybody make sure that in particular you're there to cover off the impacts of the US presidential election in Julia's update. So Julia, as ever, many, many thanks. We're now going to move on to bring onto screen our wonderful change maker for the week, Ebony Thompson. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big, big thank you to Julie Onslow Cole and welcome to the stage, Ebony Thompson. Hey, hi. We've got over 250 people watching us now. So this is really exciting. Ebony, tell us, you're one of our wonderful change makers. We've got over 150 change makers, more on that later. But tell us a bit about yourself.
Yes. So, hi, I am located in the Metro Detroit area. I've been in global mobility for 13 plus years now. I've handled everything from domestic relocation, rotations, offshores, international relocation, assignments, and immigration, as well as taxes. I joined or got into global mobility from a manager that wanted to train me up in the global mobility world and said, if you don't like it, let me know and we'll figure things out. We had acquired Arvin Meritor's body and roofing systems, and with that acquisition came a significant number of expatriates. I embraced it and I've never looked back.
Cool. Okay. And what are you up to these days?
I'm looking for a new role. I was laid off and looking for more opportunities in the global mobility world.
Well, let's give Ebony a shout out. Ebony is an amazing global mobility manager. If you're looking, or you know anybody who's looking for any assistance as a mobility manager, then Ebony is your woman. So Ebony, we'll give you a shout out and let's see whether anything comes out. But tell us a bit about your change makers. What do you get out of being a change maker? And tell us a bit about your passion for technology.
Oh yeah. I'm thrilled to be a part of such a dynamic industry that actively shapes the future of global mobility technology, while we also champion charitable causes through work for charity initiatives. Being a change maker allows us all to blend our expertise in the global mobility industry with a deep commitment to making a positive impact on the world. Technology within global mobility is so vital. It helps people like myself and all the other peers and the change makers to work more effectively. It helps us keep communication around the globe, and it also helps keep down the tedious tasks. Administrative work can be so tedious that technology allows for us to minimize that. And it also helps when it comes to vendor management, is what your topic is today. That's also a great thing when you're integrating two systems together.
Cool. And Ebony, with Changemakers, of course, we always support a charity of your choosing. So I know you've chosen a charity called Blessings in a Backpack. Tell us a bit about that, because I must admit, it's not a charity that I knew that much about before we spoke. So tell us a bit about it.
Yes, during the pandemic, Blessings in a Backpack came to my attention. They are a nonprofit organization that addresses childhood hunger by providing food for children who struggle with hunger on the weekends. I vividly remember receiving an email from my son's school district informing parents that if our children needed meals for the day, we could pick them up at designated locations. It was a stark reminder of how being out of school could impact the meals of vulnerable children. I definitely felt compelled to make a difference and to support their cause. While federal programs do provide meals during the school week, children do go hungry on the weekends.
Okay, it does sound like an amazingly important charity. And I'm glad that in our own little way, we are able to help you to support them. And Tally's put up the website for Blessings in a Backpack, a fantastic charitable organization, and kudos to everybody there who's involved, and kudos to you, Ebony, for supporting them. So Ebony, thank you so much for being on the show. Loved having you. We'll bring you back towards the end of the show as well but meanwhile, we're going to move on to talk about vendor management, which is such an important subject. And we've got to join us now. We've got Amir Pinto, who is the Chief Business Officer at Benivo, but also our very own Tally Gorin, who, aside from being our show producer, also leads our Changemaker initiative. So everybody, you know how it works. Hit the heart button, hit the like button, hit the applause button. Let's say a big thank you and indeed good luck to Ebony Thompson with her job search, but also a big welcome to Amir Pinto and Tally Gorin. Hey,
Hello.
how are you both?
Very good, very good.
Good. Okay. So, Amir, I'll just start with you for a second because I think everybody knows Tally. But Amir, just introduce yourself and your role so that we know that too.
No worries. Hi, everybody. Super excited to be here today and talk about one of my favorite topics, vendor management. So I've joined Benivo last year, and my background is from Amazon. In my previous role before joining Benivo, I was in charge of the last mile delivery at London and had to work with hundreds of vendors. Before that, I was a commercial lawyer, so I think like I'm lots of background in commercial contracts and managing vendors across the board. Yeah, one of the best decisions I had to join Benivo. So very happy to have you today.
And if anybody knows about supply chain management, it's got to be Amazon. So that's a real sort of feather in your cap, indeed feather in our cap. But Tally, let me just start with you. I mean, everybody knows you as our wonderful show producer, and from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all the, I know, countless hours, and people got no idea of the behind the scenes sort of last minute shenanigans we have trying to get everything sorted so the show goes on. And you're so professional, and I appreciate everything you do. I think everybody out there, by the way, everybody out there, let's have some hearts lighting up the screen for all the work that Tally does week in, week out on this show. But Tally, you've got two roles, of course. So not only are you our wonderful producer, but you also lead the Changemaker initiative. So tell us a bit about that. Tell us about developments, what they are, what they do, and what you're doing with them.
Yeah, I just received an introduction today from one of the changemakers who called me the heart behind the Changemakers group, and it is my heart with this amazing group. So the Changemakers community was started by Benivo as a focus group for development of new and improved technology. But what it turned out to be is a wonderful networking opportunity for now 150 members from different global mobility teams from all of the leading companies in the global mobility sphere. So these people together have 2,000 years of shared global mobility experience, and they use that to question each other. So we have different methods of communication, and they keep asking each other about programs, about policies. You heard it from Ebony, how they use the network and how they share their knowledge together. And as a thank you,
that means like collectively they've been moving Romans and Vikings and
definitely, yeah. And as a thank you from us, so it doesn't take a lot. We need the changemakers to comment on our developments, to brainstorm with us for 1 hour quarterly. But as a thank you for that, Benivo is donating for every active quarter $250, which adds to $1,000 per year to any charity that they like. So you heard about Ebony's blessing in a backpack, but this year only, we donated $69,500 to 115 different charities. And that's a lot because every changemaker can choose even 4 different charities during the year. So they get an opportunity to really make a change.
Cool. Okay, so that's a bit about the changemakers. Now I know on the last call there was a bit of a discussion about the vendor management platform, which is what obviously we're going to be talking about today. But tell us just a bit about that, and then we'll move on to a bit more detail with Amir.
Yeah, we actually wanted to focus on, we wanted to get the opinions from the changemakers, so to understand how they view vendor management, what are the challenges that they see. We wanted to also introduce the solution that Benivo currently has and to see what they think about it and what are their inputs about it, how they think we can make it even better. And we got some really, really interesting advice and comments, which we thought would be great to share here. We ran some polls during the call, and I'm going to share the results of these polls here, of course, anonymously. But it's going to be really interesting to see what these, again, 150 global mobility leaders from the biggest companies, the most important companies in the market. It would be really interesting to see what they're thinking.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on then to, I'll just chat with you for a moment, Amir. You know, from your perspective, you are the Chief Business Officer at Benivo, and you are, you know, the force behind the Benivo solution for vendor management, which is the BSP, Benivo Supply Partner Network. So tell us a bit about that.
Cool. Yeah, I think it's very interesting, right? I think there's a lot. What I've seen lately, there's a lot of different approaches into vendor management between our different clients. And I think one of the great benefits that we have is that also to have the option to consult and advise and give a little bit of our 2 cents on what we've seen in the network and what's the best practices that we have. I think one of the things that it's very important to understand is that Benivo has a vast network of vendors. Thanks, Tali. You can see the slide. You can see in the slide the level of a number of vendors that we have. We have a global coverage, of course. And I think one of the things that I wanted to share with the change makers and also get their inputs is about our process of onboarding. And also what's important for us, right? So in our Benivo Supply Partners network, what's really important for us is before we onboard any vendor, is that they'll have full compliance to our data security checks. This is something super important, especially for any tech company in the world, but definitely with a company that deals with passports and lots of personal information. So this is one of the things that we're scrutinizing the most in our process of onboarding. The second thing that is very important for us in our vetting in our normal operation is that our system is connected to 3 different platforms. So it's a vendor platform, the employee platform, and the global mobility platform. And in cases also with the relocation consultants, if they're involved in the project. And this gives us full visibility of timekeeping and trackers of the vendors, and also the performance and the quality of the service that they're providing, that we can see through the feedback that we're getting from the employees. And lastly, I think it's super important as well, because we're using user-to-user chat within our platform. We can also trace lots of the communication between the employees and the vendors. We can get sentiment analysis. So it gives us a very big scope of what's happening within our platform, between the different players interacting. I think it's important. I wanted to introduce also in that case the BSP team, or the Benivo Supply Partners team, the people behind this technology and the people interacting with the vendors, doing their QBR, the quarterly meetings with our vendors to make sure that they're getting all the support, and also providing the coaching. So it's important to know that behind the technology, there's also actually people that can really drive performance. And the last thing that I want to share with the change makers in that meeting was the flexibility of using Benivo. It also came quite a lot during the call as a benefit. The ability to change vendors, to scope it versus to different policies or geographies, and to do this in a number of days is something that our change makers are really impressed by, and we're very happy to hear about.
We'll get into in a moment some of the stuff that the change makers wanted. But before we do, and I know there's going to be lots of people who are thinking this, you know, we've talked about the supply partners Benivo has, but how does somebody join the Benivo supplier network? If somebody wants to become part of the network, what are you looking for, and how do they apply?
Very good question. So first of all, Tali, if you can share the link now, it would be very nice to join the network. It will be very helpful. Our process is fully automated. We use, I think, like most companies right now, a CRM. First, you apply using the link, or if one of our clients introduces us to a vendor, we approach the vendor. Then there's a step of an NDA to be completed, and then starts the real process, right? So then what we do is we do security verification and a DSQ, which is a data security questionnaire that is filled by the vendor to make sure that they're meeting the standards of GDPR or whatever geography that they're working for. This process can take 2-3 weeks because, and I think it's enlightening for a lot of our vendors, especially if I have to say US-based vendors, which are not accustomed to GDPR. But I think it's also an opportunity for the vendors to increase their security over their data. And then we'll move into more standard parts of the onboarding, which is an SOW and a contract, which most of our vendors probably know. And that's it. Then they're onboarded, and then what happens next is that for each client, the BSP team or the Benivo supplier partner team, they build a vendor strategy to suit them specifically. I was just talking with Tali and Brian before the show about a really unique DSP that operates in Sweden. So we are looking for these unique specialities. We can see that they're offering a lot of added value to our clients, where it's a special geography, special location, sometimes a special population, right, of extremely high-rank VIPs. So these are the types of solutions that we're looking for, to your question, Brian.
So I think maybe one way of putting it is in terms of the supply chain partners we're particularly looking for at the moment, it's ones that have got some form of something unique about them, a unique selling proposition, because if you like, we've got plenty of, if you like, ones that can do everything out there, but it's the ones that got a niche. So if you've got a niche service in particular, we'd be very interested, or a niche proposition, we'd be very interested. Question here that's come in from Monica, I'll just put up there. Is it just an external facing platform, or do you have counsellors internally that use it as well? And is there a separate view for GM leaders?
Yes, so let me be 100% sure that I understand the question. Tali, can you put the question back in again, or Brian, just so I have it in front of me?
Yeah, I think the reference is the structure of the platform, and the platform has is facing 3 ways. So this is the beauty of the platform. The platform has the employee view, it has the global mobility manager view, and it has the vendor, the supplier view. So it's 3 different platforms that are connected together in a way that keeps all the information inside, all communication, all the data that is going inside this closed system, and each one of the actors in this platform gets his own view and the way that is fitted to their needs.
So let me
elaborate.
Well, let me just move the conversation on. I think that's really helpful. But we talked about the change makers, and we've got this panel of 150 leaders of, by and large, major corporations globally. And I know, Tali, you did quite a lot of research with them. So when you were talking to the change makers, what was most important for them when selecting vendors? So tell us a bit about that.
So that was interesting. When we asked what was most important, the main thing, and you can see by far, is the quality of service. So yes, there were other things that, so what we asked, what we had in this list was quality of service, real-time tracking, cost, sustainability, and hassle-free. So there were other features that were not in this list, and they were mentioned later, but people first and foremost looked at quality of service even ahead of cost saving, although the cost saving would come a bit later.
Yes, and I think for me, I don't know if this was a surprise, but I think it was very happy results when I got this from the vendors. I was very happy to get this confirmation, and the discussion we had is Benivo's ability using report to show real-time feedback and reviews from employees to the vendors. And I think if you're working in the industry, you probably have seen that there's a quarterly reviews where you get second-hand reviews from your employees on vendors. Maybe I think in a good case it's quarterly. Here you can access through the platform in a real time with people right now doing these services to get their feedback, and you can easily go and have a chat with them and see how they're feeling about the review, and then we can real time change your decisions, right? To see if you want to move from vendor A to vendor B because you're not happy with the results, right? And I think the second thing that came up is if you heard about Brian's famous pizza analogy about trackers. One of the things that we really put emphasis on is to ensure timely completion of steps in the tracker to make sure that they move from one step to another. And we have AI dashboard and teams just dedicated for that to go and escalate to see what's going on, if there's a problem, if there's a way we can support the employees to make sure that we're proactively looking for issues before they come and we can support them. And I think that brings a lot of value to our clients.
Actually, maybe we should clarify, because Monica is asking who assures the compliance of data entries if council doesn't have an oversight. So the global mobility leader would have oversight on everything, but still the Benivo team would also be there to oversight and make sure that there's no issues that is coming, that data is entered properly.
Okay, and that's really helpful. One question that I know we asked the change makers, but I want to ask the audience for a bit of audience engagement here is, what is out there in audience land, what is your biggest challenge when managing your vendor network? Either if you are a corporate or if you are an RMC or somebody else in the supply chain, maybe try and look at it from the corporate's perspective. What is the biggest challenge when managing your vendor network? And I'll give you 4 options. The first is managing quality. The second is tracking performance, or the SLAs. The third is communication and transparency. And the last one is managing costs and fees. So I'm interested in your views. What is the challenge that we get? And Tali, I'll show the results in a moment, but I'll leave that up there to let people comment. But tell us what people saw, Tali, from your perspective about challenges in managing vendors.
So again, service quality was there ahead, and the difficulty in tracking performance. So these are the things, and the lack of transparency, which Amir already mentioned, and we mentioned also in response to Monica's question. So definitely these are the top 3 things, but then comes also high cost and communication issues.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing that we do on a daily basis at Benivo is that, first of all, because we audit all of the invoices from the vendors and also expenses, which is similar, right? The receipts related to global mobility expenses. First of all, we make sure that financial compliance is met, but we also have the data to see if something is not to par with the pricing of that vendor. We can make recommendations if something is too high or too low. The other thing that I want to mention on cost is that we use a price comparison tool to help a client drive costs down. So one of the major test cases we have is for household goods. We allow to reach out to a number of vendors at the same time, and then you'll get quotes from all of them, and you can choose one of the quotes that you want. It's a real-time thing to save. You can actually show how you can save money in this quote. The last thing I want to just make sure, because it was also mentioned, communication. Benivo also utilize employer-to-vendor internal messaging. So once a vendor is initiated with the employee, a vendor can reach out through the messaging system to the employee, which will also pop up in their email. So they don't have to be logged into the platform. Which will show, hey, vendor X reach out to you about service Y. And I think the brilliant thing is that the global mobility team or relocation consultant can also have visibility of this communication. So if there is an escalation, and I think a lot of us were there at that point, you can go read back, see all the communication that was between the employee and the vendor. You're privy to it. You can also join it if you want and interfere, which I think is a huge added value to our clients.
Okay, and talking about these, I mean, Michelle made the comment here. She said, if service is not quality, then it will cost more in the long run. Absolutely, there's an old saying, isn't there? There's nothing more expensive than cheap. So, I mean, quality of service is quite clearly there. In terms of the survey that we ran, and this was the one that we just ran on LinkedIn during the week, what it said was service quality, 27%, so it was their biggest challenge. SLAs, managing performance, 29%, communications, 18%, and managing cost, 27%. So they're all big challenges out there. But what about the challenges in managing the vendors? What else have you seen around that, Tali?
So actually, we went on to ask our change makers what would be the best feature in the dream vendor management platform. And I think you also asked that in LinkedIn, if I'm not wrong.
I certainly did. Let me pull up the question here that I asked in LinkedIn. In LinkedIn was, what feature would you most like to see in your dream vendor management platform? So again, out in the audience, if you'd like to say, what feature would you most like to see? And I gave people 4 choices. I said real-time status updates, enhanced analytics, vendor performance tracking, or APIs with your management systems.
And you actually took the first most important 4 that came up for the change makers, and that was actually really interesting. And you know, it resonated with something that I had a call with one of the change makers just yesterday, and he talked about the possibility to be more strategic. He said, if we have a good enough platform that will take away the mundane daily tasks that not only, you know, they tire our team, but they also take from their time. They don't let them strategically think of new programs, of new ways. If we can take that away with a good platform, then we'll have more time for strategic looking, and you can see that from this that our change makers are looking for that. So they want status updates, so that when the business comes to them and asks what's happening with the moves, they can give immediate answer. They want enhanced analytics. They want performance tracking. They want to know. They want to know everything ahead of time and as it's happening, so that they can be part of the decision. They can come back to the business and explain and inform them even before things actually happen.
Cool.
And one more thing that was really important there is the APIs. I think it was also mentioned in one of the comments here. But yeah, Amir, maybe you want to say something about the APIs.
Yeah, like I'm happy to talk about APIs. It's another favorite topic. So Benivo definitely sees the future with APIs, right? So you know, I think it's the best way to move information between the platforms. It's less like it requires less effort from anyone. And we are building lots of APIs with vendors. I don't want to go into names, but we are building lots of APIs. What we do see is that we do spend most of our effort with APIs on our big vendors that use Benivo a lot. But what I want to mention is that for the vendors that are not using us a lot and don't have an API, we're still trying to create a best-in-class experience. But by having the vendor platform and the support from the Benivo supply partner team.
Okay. We also had a couple of questions from, or let's just take this one from Michelle. She said, real-time updates do take time, perhaps providing a drop-down that will allow for key status points that could be quickly updated with space for free text if needed.
Yes, correct. You're right, Michelle.
And we have that. We have the reports, and with real-time data, this is the benefit of just having everything in one platform. So you don't need to pull data from different sources when the question comes, but you just have it in your hand. Like Amir said, you don't need to wait for the quarterly review. You have it there day in, day out. The data is just coming in. Everything, all the trackers are pushing into reports, and you can see the data just on a regular basis.
Okay, and a couple of questions have come in from, or not come in, but they came out from our change makers during the process. So let me just take them. One of our change makers said this. One of the I'll just put it on screen actually, but it's quite long, so I'll take it off after a moment. One of the fundamental issues with global mobility assignee experience is there are too many points of contact for the assignee. Ain't that the truth? Too many points of contact. Do you have a solution for this? Do you offer a single point of contact model?
I think it's a great question, and I think one of the things that I've seen with different clients is that the different populations require different support, right? If you think about the intern population, most companies I've seen probably offer a lump sum and maybe temporary accommodation as a service, and maybe a little bit of DSP as well, just to support them as they come in. But definitely you can see the people get more senior, there's more services involved. The more services involved, it could be overwhelming if you have, like, as soon as you're initiated, getting 10, 15 emails from different vendors, right? And it could be, I cannot really understand this question. So what we've done is at Benivo, you probably have seen this, hopefully you've seen this in other shows, is we built also an option for high touch and high tech. Here, what we offer is also a relocation consultant service to support the assignee, and depending on the tier of support that they're requesting, they can also get the SPOC or the single point of contact model. And we definitely seen this happening a lot in our in the recent couple of months. In that case, all questions or comments from the vendors will be directed into the relocation. And the relocation consultant will be in touch with the assignee. It will save the assignee a lot of back and forth. I just want to mention that, as of course, there's like pricing implications into having a SPOC model. We also have a tier of relocation consultant or relocation management. And what in this part, when we do only vendor management. So in this case, the consultant will not be the single point of contact, but they'll be on CC on all the comms, and they will be able to interfere or intervene if they see something goes out of policy, if the employee seems confused or don't know how to answer, they will be able to support that, and the pricing level will be a bit lower as one can expect.
Okay, let me move the conversation on, because I see Monica's comment has put that up there. In my experience, the single point of contact model is offered to execs, but even in those situations, for legal reasons, exec needs to communicate with tax and immigration vendors. Yeah, I'll move the conversation on a bit, because I know another question or comment that one of our change makers asked was, is it possible to choose different vendors for different programs or different locations? So how flexible is the network, is the program?
Yeah,
and
so
multiple vendors for the same.
Yeah. So I, in my head, it's a little bit of like a Lego blocks, Brian. So at Benivo, we have like all the vendors. These are our blocks. We can connect it to any of our clients. All is needed is implementation from our side onto the platform. So if client X tells us that for this population, they require these vendors, and for these geographies, we need these vendors, we can work with them. Actually, the cool thing, and I think what's the added value of working in Benivo is that we actually go and build a strategy with our clients. Some clients prefer to have 3 or 4 vendors and on each category. Some prefer to have 1. And I think it allows a lot of flexibility for our clients. If you don't have that, if you contact directly, you need to start like a whole procurement process, legal reviews, and because everybody is connected to Benivo. It's easier to do it. I think one of the examples that recently happened is that we had a client that doesn't have normally VIPs relocating. It's a small company, it's a small client, They did ask for one to be moved globally, and they asked us, hey, do you have vendors that support this kind of level of executives? And it was very easy for us to just connect, know exactly where they're moving, what's the policy, on board for this specific client, a number of vendors, which I think help us resolve this issue quickly.
And actually, one of the change makers mentioned that a former employer that he worked for operated a dual vendor model. Each provider, as you said, will have particular strengths in certain geographies, but he told us that it also served as the contingency measure in times of peak activity, and kind of an implied threat that if one vendor didn't perform that well, they always knew that there was another vendor that was ready to step in. And I think this would have been much easier if these vendors would have been initiated on one platform.
Correct. Just one small comment on that, Tali. So I definitely understand the advantages of having multiple vendors per service. But I do see clients also prefer to have one vendor as well as a strategy. Reason being is because then they create real partnership with that vendor, and the vendor really knows their policy, their little quirks, their little preferences, as opposed to having a vendor that they use 5 times a year. They'll have a vendor that they use 15 times a year, 20 times a year, which they can really understand. And so it's a policy decision, and the cool thing is that we can support both.
Okay, well, whilst we're talking about policy decisions, I mean, obviously using a supplier network makes life easy when it comes to choosing your vendors, because they're all onboarded on the platform and you don't have to worry about going through maybe some of the procurement issues. But procurement will often look through things and will want to say, in particular for sustainability and diversity, they'll want to have the data about how sustainable, how diverse is the network. So maybe you could just tell us, how much is that something that is coming up in RFPs at the moment, i.e. sustainability and diversity, and tell us a bit about how that is managed within the platform.
Yeah, so I think one of the reasons I asked Tali to have a change maker meeting about vendors is because recently, we participated in a lot of RFPs, and this topic came quite a lot, and I wanted to understand from the horse's mouth, like is this going to happen now for all the time, right? Then we need maybe to rethink about our strategy. So what we saw, first of all, in terms of diversity related to women and minorities, we did an intelligence check, and we found out that 50% of our vendors meet this requirement or metric, right? So 50% are women-owned or what is classified as minorities. In terms of sustainability, what we've started using in Benivo is services of companies that can create carbon emission reports. So our vendors can create this one as well, but we also have our own household goods vendors that will also use this service. And what they do is they calculate the emissions related right now to household goods, because this is the major factor in emissions, based on the weight, based on the type of movement and the distance. Is it air or ship, right? And they'll do that, and what they'll do, which I think is very interesting, is that they'll calculate the money value of that, and then they will do reforestation for that. So if it's $500 or $1,000 or whatever, they'll bill, and then that will go into that replanting of trees, which I think personally is very important. And I think the other thing that we talked about, which is another great service that we're offering right now only in the US and Canada. So please, Europe and the rest of the world, wait up. Is that we do discard and donate. So we have companies that will come into the assignee's home, if permitted, of course, And while they're moving from their from their mansion into a flat in New York, right, they need to probably downsize with all the furniture. And what this one of our providers saying that it actually creates a reduction of costs up to 15% actually from the household good moves. And I think it's super interesting to see the work around that, because it really can change your mind about what you're going to take with you when you move. If you've moved before, you probably know how complicated this process could be. So it's a great added value that can actually save costs, right? So you get, and it's green because it gets donated to charities, which I think is another kicker. So it's overall a great service to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think discard and donate is a fantastic concept. I know when I moved, my rule of thumb was if I haven't touched it in 6 months, it's out.
Yeah, but the cool thing here is that someone is actually coming to help you with these decisions. And to me, this one would worth a lot of money, but it was really interesting to see the calculation where you can see that actually at the end of the day, this service can actually save for the company. And that was really nice to see.
Yeah. So we've talked a lot. We're getting towards the end of the hour. And we've talked about the supply chain and how people join the supplier network. But Tali, just flipping to the other side of the coin, we got a lot of benefit here from the change makers. And we know the change makers get a lot of benefit from being part of the network. How do people join the change makers network, and what are you looking for in terms of new change makers?
So I already shared the link. I can share it once again. We're looking for corporate members, for global mobility team members, and yeah, you're also sharing it there. And yes, this joining the change makers. So you just have to contact us, and we'll onboard you. But joining the change makers would not take a lot of your time. What we're asking is participation in a meeting, quarterly meeting, once every quarter. However, the change makers, and they showed it before, they have access to the Benivo platform. And on this platform, they have free access to the cost estimation tool that is powered by Vialto Partners. So this is a real thing. This is really working, and you can run your own cost estimates. And they also have there the Benivo GPT, which we also mentioned in one of the previous calls. So again, asking questions about global mobility. So you have access to that, and of course you have access.
So there's no cost there. So the change makers
No.
access to unlimited cost estimates, unlimited use of Benivo GPT.
2,000 years of experience from your community members, and a wonderful networking opportunity. And I mean, the top of it, like the cherry on the top, is really the donation that Benivo is making. So it's really an opportunity to do good.
Okay, so we're coming towards the end of the show. I'm just going to bring back our change maker. So we've been talking about change makers, and of course, our immigration guru, Julia. So Ebony, so you've enjoyed being a change maker. Have you found the show today useful as well?
I think maybe Ebony has a problem with your connection. Yeah.
And Julia, thank you so much for being on the show. And I know you're going to be talking about the impact of a change of US president on the show next week. So thank you so much for that. We are pretty much out of time now. All that really remains is that I want to thank all our guests. I want to thank Ebony Thompson. I want to thank Julia Onslow-Cole, Amir Pinto, Tali Gorin, who actually performed 2 roles today, both on stage and backstage. A real tour de force, a masterclass there, Tali, of professionalism. So thank you so much. We are back next week when we're going to be talking about managing mobility in a perma-crisis world with our wonderful friends from International SOS. That is going to be a really, really important crisis. And it's whatever the crisis may be, a natural crisis, a political crisis, a personal crisis, whatever the crisis is, International SOS is there to help. And we'll be talking about what we as mobility professionals can do and how we can prepare for those awful scenarios before they occur. So that's
And
it.
if you want to join our BSP network, I shared the link again.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Okay, we are out of time. Thank you, everybody. This has been The View from the Top. I've been your host, Brian Friedman. We will see you all again this time next week. Take care, everybody, and have a great, great week.
Thank you.